I want to start my review of Wicked by making it clear that this is a review of the book, and not the celebrated musical or recent movies, as they are significantly different. The adaptations are widely loved, but the book is often prefaced as challenging, even by its fans. For me, that held up, and it was my most challenging read to date, even more so than my last review of V for Vendetta, which I gave my lowest rating to date of 3 out of 5 stars. While I disagreed with V's conclusions, I found the writing sharp and engaging. Wicked, on the other hand, has the complete opposite problem. I found myself broadly aligned with its themes, but completely defeated by the book's execution. Where this book fundamentally faltered for me was in its prose and structure. Gregory Maguire builds a fascinating world, but the narrative has a tendency to waffle, getting lost in overly intellectualized musings and needlessly dense descriptions that grind the plot to a halt. This issue is compounded by what feels like a jarring structural collapse. The first section, detailing Elphaba's birth and early life, is compelling and accessible, with short, rewarding chapters comprising of 7 pages on average. However, once the story moves beyond this origin, the structure dissolves. Chapter lengths balloon to over 4 times the size, and Book 3 forgoes chapters altogether. The plot meanders, and the pacing grinds to a halt. It went past the point of a slow burn, and became a slog. Beyond the structural and prose issues, another element that grated on me as a disabled person was the book's portrayal of disability. The book is brilliant at depicting the systemic oppression of animals, making their marginalization a vivid political allegory that we can extend into the real world. It's a stark contrast to how Nessaro's disability is handled. Her character arc leans heavily on the bitter cripple trope, where her physical condition and how society responds to it is used as a simplistic motivational engine for her tyranny and spite. The characters of the animals are treated with such care by the author, which makes this carelessness with disability sting even more. The sense of frustration culminated in an ending that fell flat for me. I understand the need to neatly marry this story into The Wizard of Oz, so Elphaba must die. But the way this is handled felt muddy. Did she care so much about the injustice that the wizard forced on the land of Oz that it drove her to an irrational, sleep-deprived state of clumsiness, which ultimately causes her death? This book lays out the horrors of marginalization and authoritarianism so clearly, but Elphaba, the only character we see fighting back, becomes so skittish that her actions are easily twisted to look wicked. Is the lesson here that we shouldn't agitate for change at all? I loved Frankenstein because it left me with questions, but I'm infuriated by the questions this left me with. Was Elphaba's struggle just futile? Having finished the book, I feel only relief that the ordeal is over. Despite its timely themes, the writing style, the incoherent structure, and the sheer struggle of reading it have made me want to disengage entirely. It's a huge shame because the nugget of a great story is clearly there. You can see it in the very popular adaptations. But here, in writing, it's buried too deep. I give it 1 out of 5 stars. The only lesson I feel this book has taught me is a newfound appreciation for the power of a strong editorial hand, something I feel Wicked lacked. Now usually, this is where I'd dive into the book's themes and talk about my thoughts on them, and Wicked is full of strong themes. Marginalization, the nature of evil, animal rights, but honestly, the process of reading this book was a far more powerful experience for me than the story itself. The struggle forced me to fully leverage my existing accessibility tools and even learn new ones. So today, I want to talk about that journey and how I was able to get through Wicked. I should start by saying I have a learning disability called Erland syndrome. It's similar to dyslexia, and for me, it makes text on a page look like shifting rivers. Reading on my phone helps, but standard e-reader apps like Kindle or Libby are far too restrictive with their customization. My solution was a third-party app called FB Reader. My brother recommended it, giving me a starting setup with a black background and yellow text. I was able to tweak the shade, increase the size, and tune every setting until I found my perfect sweet spot. It was a night and day difference. So, I'd solved the problem of seeing the words clearly, but then I faced a second, more physical challenge. I also have MS, which causes me a lot of pain when holding my phone and constantly tapping to turn the page, something I have to do even more often with larger text. To accommodate this, I started using a tiny Bluetooth gamepad called an 8-bit Do. This lets me advance pages with a simple button click, with my hands in a relaxed position. It massively increased my reading efficiency and comfort, that is, for books I was already enjoying. But that comfort became a double-edged sword with Wicked. For a book I couldn't engage with, it became way too easy to just drift off. When the narrative slowed down in the second half, I was barely managing 10 pages a night before falling asleep. To finish it in time, I had to pull out the big guns. Text-to-speech in the premium version of FB Reader. After some tinkering with the voice and speed, it revolutionized my engagement. Having words read to me as I followed along doubled my reading speed and provided the extra stimulation I needed to focus. I should note, it does flatten the experience a bit. I lose the character voices in my head, and that may have contributed to my low review score, but it's an invaluable tool that I'll keep for future difficult books. This whole process has me thinking about my future improvements for reading accessibility. I've just picked up a Kobo Libra Color in a Black Friday sale. I was thrilled to find that its dark mode with a warm light is almost exactly like my phone setup. It's a great step, and the larger screen really helps mitigate the increased font size that I read with. Though I was hoping that the colour screen would allow for the same deep text and background customization that I found useful with FB Reader. The lack of this feels like a missed opportunity from Kobo. I've not had it long enough for a full review, but if you'd be interested in that, then do keep an eye out. Now, on to the bookbinding. For most of this project, I thought this rebind was one of my smoothest to date. The text block was well behaved during its surgery, the printable canvas came out perfectly the first time, and the 3D printed cover and spine went exactly to plan. The print on the canvas lined up perfectly, possibly my first time ever getting it perfectly straight. The indents for the title letters pressed smoothly into the boards. I nailed the paint for the 3D printed letters on the first try, and there were only minor scuffs after the first press. It was a joy, that is, until the last day. I'd even had the gall to say everything is going so well to my partner just before bed, right after I'd cased the text block in. I must have jinxed it, because the next day was incredibly frustrating. My frustration started in the morning when I got the book out of the press. I'd somehow managed to put the acetate barrier sheet in the wrong place and glued the inside of the front end papers together. I was able to fix it by scraping the pages apart and touching up the damaged print with some pens, but it was a definite omen of things to come. Touching up the little scuffs, coating the canvas in a protective layer of matte acrylic medium gel, and then gluing on the 3D printed title letters went deceptively smoothly and lulled me back into a false sense of security. I was really happy with how it looked, and if I'm honest, I wish I just printed the subtitle and author name on the canvas instead of what I ended up doing. The next, and what I'd hoped would be the final step, was to apply some heat transfer vinyl flourishes. I've not had the best of luck with vinyl recently, but I have a new mini heat press I wanted to try, and I hoped it would solve all of my problems. I got my Cricut out and cut the vinyl. I didn't show it here, but I had to cut it 4 times. First, it wasn't mirrored. Then, the font was too thin to weed properly, so I changed it. Then I accidentally cut the old font a second time, and on the 4th attempt, after wasting 60 centimeters of vinyl, I finally weeded the design, and it looked good. All that was left was to press it onto the canvas. My new press seemed to work really well, and it was nice seeing the exact temperature that it was set to. But the moment I tried to peel the transfer sheet away, I knew it had failed. Of course I hadn't tested it on a scrap piece first. I went back and forth, peeling and reheating, but eventually I had to give in and just scrape off the few letters of the subtitle that did stick. I knew the quote on the back wouldn't work, so I cut that out, but I thought the border might stick and tie into the vinyl that remained on the front cover, but that didn't stick well at all either. With a little finesse, I was able to peel off the transfer sheet and position the loose vinyl roughly in place, to carefully press again under some parchment paper. Then I tried the spine. A quote about trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, comes to mind while watching this back. I'd managed to get the author's name to stick on the front, so I decided to just go for it. And to everyone's total surprise, it failed again. I just about salvaged the border, but was left with big white marks where the vinyl letters had just lifted like on the front. I think I'm done with vinyl for good. Whether it's the photo canvas or the vinyl itself, it's caused me too much trouble, and I'm throwing in the towel. I think I'll look at getting a cheap A4 laser printer to do toner foiling, and just braidle bind the covers instead of trying to do it in one continuous sheet. I walked away defeated, ate, and thought about how to fix it without completely restarting. The best I could come up with seemed to be printing out some paper labels like you see on many traditional book covers. This worked okay. My first attempt got smudged, but thankfully the acrylic medium top coat I put on the canvas worked well, and I was able to rub the residue away and start again. It's pretty obvious to me that they're paper labels, and for a client I'd have started over. But for my personal copy of a book I didn't even like, it's a definite upgrade from the worn-out original, and sometimes good enough is a perfectly fine place to land. What do you think of the final result? Did you find Wicked as hard to read as I did? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Liking and subscribing really helps keep me motivated, especially through the books I'm struggling to read and to bind. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.